Hello, YouTube writers. Stephen here again with some more practical and down-to-earth advice about writing. This episode, I'm focusing on what is being called the 10,000 hours rule. Sometimes people also say a million words, which is the belief that if you practice something for 10,000 hours or you write a million words, thereafter anything you produce will be of good quality. Let's go back a little bit to talk about where that actually comes from, the 10,000 hours rule. I suspect most people don't know, or they only know half of it. It's a case of too long, didn't read it. In 2008, Malcolm Gladwell came up with this in his book called Outliers. And in it, he explains that if someone were to practice something for 3 hours a day for 10 years, that would get you to the 10,000 hours rule. And therefore, certain people that he'd studied in different industries who have done this have then gone on to achieve success. Now, it's not a hard and fast rule, but his belief was that 10,000 hours of work on something would help you to become better. More recently, people have gone back to him in the last few years and asked him to clarify his thoughts on this. And it ties into a lot of things that I agree with. He's basically said that 10,000 hours rule is not a hard and fast number. It's just something that he kind of had to put his finger on to say, if you practice something over time for a number of years, you will become better at it. It wasn't a case of cramming the 10,000 hours into as short a time as possible and thereafter you'd be a brilliant writer in this case. That isn't what he was saying. The other thing he wished he'd added originally to his book was that in order to achieve success in any field, talent was needed. So doing the 10,000 hours, if one, your heart isn't in it and you're just doing it by rote and just because you want to get to that magic number, and two, if you don't have any innate talent in something, thereafter everything you produce is not going to be amazing quality and it does not guarantee success. Likewise, if you do write for 10,000 hours, the 10,001st hour of writing is not going to be guaranteed gold success that will get you an international bestseller. It just doesn't work that way. What I think he was actually saying was that, one, you need talent, and by practicing something for 10,000 hours, you will develop it over time and become better at it because you're focused and determined to prove that you can develop this talent and it's something that you really want to do and want to have success in. And so working at something for a number of hours over a number of years will move you towards that goal. There's no guarantee, but that's what I think he was talking about. Two, commitment. Work over time often leads to success. There again, there are no guarantees, especially with publishing and traditional publishing, which is what I've experienced about and can talk about. I can't talk about self-publishing or non-fiction because they're both quite different to my experience. So I can't really give you any guidance on those areas. So number three, the quality of the 10,000 hours. As I said earlier, if you're just doing it by rote, that isn't really going to help you at all. You have to really want it, you have to really work hard at it, and you have to practice and level up, as it were, just keep improving. And by doing that, it's a lot of writing and a lot of reading. What is up with my hair today? Time for a dose of reality and some practical advice. Most people will not get published on their first book. There again, maybe just the skills aren't there, but you still need to have finished that book and learned from it. I've said this in other videos and I'll keep saying this. My first practical bit of advice to everybody is finish the book. Even if that book doesn't go anywhere, when you send it out to agents and you're trying to get published, you will learn something from it and you'll be one step further on the road to achieving success. There are always exceptions to the rule. Some authors will achieve success on their first novel and will be picked up by an agent and then a publisher. The majority will not. My first novel was not picked up by a publisher. It took me a number of novels over a course of many years before I was finally successful, and my current agent said yes, and then we sent it to a publisher, and then they said yes. And from talking to many of my friends who are published authors, they have the same story. They wrote a number of novels over a number of years, and at one point they got lucky. And the reason I'm using the word luck is that with the traditional publishing approach, there are a number of things that are beyond your control that you can't do anything about. Going back to the 10,000 hours rule, the principle of it is sound, that if you work at something and improve your skills and get better, then you stand a better chance of being picked up by an agent and then hopefully a publisher. But the problem is there are some things that are beyond your control. Timing is one. Your book might just land at the wrong time. There could have been a glut of something of that already in the industry, and that readers are just really not after another, perhaps, sparkly vampire book, just to pick an example. Maybe there's just been so many that the reading numbers have gone down, and so agents say, we're not really looking for that. There are always exceptions there again. Maybe you've done something that's so different within that genre that an agent will accept it, but most won't. So timing is key, and it's not something that you can do anything about. The other thing is preference. An agent will have preference for a book that they like or don't like. And sometimes you can send a book to one person, they don't like it, and it goes to the second agent, and they absolutely love it, and it goes on to be a bestseller. It really comes down to the individual and their taste, and that's something you can't control. And the next stage of that is, even if an agent says yes, and they love your book, and they take you on as a client, they could then send it out to a number of publishers on submission and say, got this great new book, have a look at it, what do you think? They're, again, their own personal preference of the editors who are reading it, who could say, no, it's just not it's not right for us, it's not right for us at the moment, or it's not quite right for another reason that they can't put their finger on. So there are some authors who are picked up by an agent, which is a great step. It's a huge achievement, but then their first book is not successful, or their second book, it just doesn't go anywhere for whatever reason. You have a champion in your corner with the agent, and they really love it, but sometimes that just isn't enough for it to go on to be published by one of the larger publishing houses, or even one of the small press. My story of how I found an agent and then a publisher is a lot longer than I've obviously detailed here today. I have put all of it into the ebook, and it goes through the different stages. I've also included my synopsis, which is something I really hate writing, and a covering letter. There'll be a link down below. So if you want more detailed information on how I found an agent and then a publisher, as well as the back and forth information between me and my agent, that's included there as well. It's available on Kindle, and if you're on Kindle Unlimited, then it's free on there. So there's a link to it in Amazon. Some sayings are said so often that they become cliches, but that doesn't stop them from being true. And one in particular is, practice makes perfect. Now, I know it's really annoying, and that isn't practical at all or useful to you, except that the 10,000 hours rule as this magical line in the sand isn't a guarantee. It's not going to get you over the finishing line. But what you can do is work on the things that you can control, do the best that you can, put as much time and effort in as you can. And another thing you can do is know your industry. Look at what's coming out. Look at who the active agents are. Follow them on social media. See what's going on. Follow some of the authors, and just know your industry, know what's going on in it, and have a greater awareness, because I think that can really help you. So that's all I'm going to do for this episode. If you like what I'm doing, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll have new videos coming out fairly regularly. But in the meantime, that's it for me, and thanks for watching.